How you guys doing today?
Hey.
Hey.
Happy almost over to Mercury retrograde.
I know, my goodness. This has been a rough ride, guys. I don't know about you, but wow. This has been a tough one. And, you know, it's funny because we were going to cover astrology on this particular show way more in depth than we normally do. And wow, I can't wait. I can't wait to get Tim on the phone and be like,
I got to see what's going on.
Oh my God, Tim.
We have to know, Tim.
Why is this one so bad? Why?
It's bleeding into my readings too, and I'm finding a lot of how I read is kind of adapting to everything that's going on. And sometimes I don't always read reversals.
Okay.
But I do during the retrograde.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Absolutely coincide. So if I have a card that's upside down, I know that's the retrograde.
Yeah.
Affecting everyone, and a lot of people's travel is being affected right now. Everyone's hugely. So, you know, I think it's going to be interesting because these shows are a bit of a time capsule for us, because these are archived on our Facebook page, so we can always go back and watch them later. And so when we think about the astrological forecast, when we think about some of the things that we've talked about, I'm seriously going to go back and take a look at a few things, because, you know, we've kind of known in a way that some major things were going to be taking place in 2020, and we did talk about this. And now we're seeing some major things, you know, coming to pass. It's like, oof, you know, some things definitely. We've had a lot of people reaching out about health. Tons.
And we've had a lot of health issues going on with people in our personal lives. Thank God, not you and me, though, Ken.
Yeah, stay strong and healthy. And
you washed those hands before I clapped them.
Hands. We did. We washed.
Yeah, we washed our hands.
That's the mystery to how to stay healthy, is to wash your hands and cough into your arm.
Yep, definitely. It's a magical protection right there. Cough into the arm, wash the hands. But seriously, you know, you've had a ton of readings of people asking about health.
So I've been getting a lot of readings. Yep. People who are concerned about what's going to happen with the virus and how people are feeling. And my response is going to be the same. Wash your hands.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid.
So one of the things I wanted to mention is some of the things that we actually do talk about when we talk about health in the book. Things that you want to be looking for if you're doing your own tea leaf readings, which of course we talk quite a bit about how to do them in this book. You're looking for things like the acorn. The symbol of the acorn is a symbol of good health. You're looking for the elephant. The elephant is definitely positive. You're going to be looking for a tree branch, you know, especially a really healthy looking one. Those are all really positive symbols that you might be looking for in the cup to denote good health. Things to watch out for: ants marching. Not a good thing to see. You know, something's on the move. You know, that's troubling. Scissors, not usually a good thing. The symbols around it can tell you clues if it's you yourself, if it's someone close to you that may need surgery or something. And then warning signs that basically say to you, hey, this is something that you can, recover from, but you do need to get to a doctor. Things like the jug, the nurse. If you see a nurse,
go to the doctor.
Go see your doctor. Or even the serpent is a message that basically does say, know yourself, listen to your body. And there is the serpent for me and you, for lots of witches, it's not necessarily a negative symbol. Down through the ages, of course, it's kind of gotten a bad reputation, but but for us, it is a symbol of power, and it's a symbol of transformation. So this could mean, the type of a health thing that is going to be, transformative. It's going to change you, but you want to get out ahead of it. So those are the kinds of symbols and omens and things that you're going to be looking for in clouds, in your teacup, etc., to kind of give you clues about health.
Symbols are everywhere. Pay attention. I always tell people, the universe is talking to us constantly, and we need to pay attention. Our own soul, our own personal power is stronger than we know. Magic is actually proof of our unlimited ability to create. So pay attention.
Yep.
It's talking to you. And if you hear something, see something, feel something, make note of it.
Yep.
This is the time to make changes.
Absolutely.
I feel like during this retrograde, however, a lot of bad things have happened. I felt of a extreme connection to nostalgia. It's dialing back. We did a beautiful event this weekend at Turner's, and we did a wonderful tea event. That's where I met Sandra. I mean, we have so much history there, and we read for such beautiful people and the food. So thank you to everyone at Turner's.
Yes, and if you went, thank you so much for helping to make that such a memorable first event for the tea at Turner's. That's the first time we've done the tea there. But with Festival of the Dead, we used to do events there all the time.
Absolutely.
So it really was, and that's the room where we met, right?
Yeah.
So we have a lot of great memories in that special space that they have, which is just absolutely gorgeous, with the fireplace and the beautiful, peaked ceiling and the whole, everything.
And their clam chowder. Now that was a first.
Oh, yeah. We've never had the chowder at the tea, right? So that was incredible too.
It was great. It was great. So we're looking forward to doing another one, and we'll keep you informed when that's coming up.
Absolutely. Another thing that's coming up, Spirit Beacon.
Yay!
Spirit Beacon returns.
I'll be there.
Leanne will be there both days, actually. We're growing to 2 days this year. A lot of people, if I have it on a Saturday, people go, oh, I miss it on the Sunday. And if I have it on a Sunday, people are like, I wish it was a Saturday. So guess what? This year, we're going to give you both. So it's on Saturday and Sunday, 10 to 5 on Saturday and 10 to 4 on Sunday. Leanne and a bunch of other readers are going to be there. Readers. Fantastic psychics. Myra is coming back to read at the event. I forget where she's living right now, but she's originally from the area, and she's been elsewhere, but she's going to actually come back to read there. Deborah Laurie is reading there, and Darlene with them, and I'm trying to think of, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Sunday, Amy Sabatino will be with us.
Amy
David Ray will be there, I believe, both days. So yeah, we're gonna have a great crew of psychics and phenomenal vendors, phenomenal craftspeople that make the most beautiful things. How about Sylvia and the Spirit Dolls?
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Incredible spirit dolls, and oh my gosh, I can go on and on, but like all kinds of handmade, beautiful gifts for people with Mother's Day coming up, etc.
It's wonderful. Wonderful time.
Lisa Page's pottery. Oh my gosh, Honey Shack with the stained glass and the local honey. Oh my gosh, I could go on. But anyways, amazing. Go on the Spirit Beacon Facebook, or go on the event. It's the 28th and 29th of this month. If you want to know more information about who's reading there and who's going to be there with their wares, including, of course, Gallows Hill Witchery, and possibly New Aeon.
Yes.
So we'll see.
Yes, that's very exciting.
It is exciting. It's super exciting.
We also have, at the end of the month, I am teaching a mediumship class right here in the Spirit Parlor of Omen. I will be teaching people how to connect with people they've lost and loved. And before that, the traditional covens of New England, T-Cone, will be hosting the spring equinox, and it will be the Minoan brothers in the Minoan sisterhood, and we'll be hosting that. It's going to be incredible. It is honestly my favorite one we do. It's great.
And of course, it's always free.
Yes, it is free.
And that's at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
On Sunday, the
22nd. It is March 22nd. March 22nd. So those two things will be happening on a Sunday, keeping you busy throughout the month of March as we get ready for spring and rebirth.
Yes, absolutely. I am so looking forward to it. I'm glad we're having an early spring. The groundhog was indeed right, and we're having an early spring, and I couldn't be happier. And so without further ado, what's our card for today?
Our card is the Page of Cups.
The Page of Cups.
The Page of Cups. And I chose the Page of Cups because The full moon is going to be in Pisces, and I also, I think it's a time of being sensitive with all the nostalgia that we're feeling these days.
Right.
It is a time for maybe let's be a little kinder to one another.
Oh gosh, yes.
It's time to be a little bit more creative in the way you love people and the things you do. It is a sensitive card. It is gentle and emotional. It is the daydreamer. The negative aspects are definitely childish behavior, living in a world of fantasy, and just not getting it done. It's being a little immature. It's good to bring youthfulness to your life, but you want to keep maturity in your life. When you're doing a reading, this could mean a lover, a possible admirer, someone who cares for you.
A younger person, perhaps?
Yes, a very young, yes.
Of the page.
And sometimes the page means, the page has no gender. It is fluid. So it could be a young man or a young woman expressing love. These court cards, however, they sometimes represent children. Sometimes it's somebody who makes you feel childish and lovely inside. But this is also new opportunities on the horizon. I actually printed all the different little images that you could have with the Page of Cups.
Oh yeah, several different. I like different imagery with that. A lot of them do have the fish rising up out of the cup.
Yes, which is somehow, it's connected to Pisces, and we're still in Pisces, which is my mom's birthday time, which is wonderful.
Happy birthday, Rita.
Happy birthday, Mom. Both the moon and the Page of Cups are dealing with the beauty of life, okay? So let's
celebrate the good things.
Yes, let's
celebrate the good things.
Let's stay on the positive note. I understand there's always the yin and the yang, the bad and the good. Let's just focus on how far we've come rather than constantly beating ourselves up.
We need to focus on the things that unite us instead of the things that divide us.
We need to think about our relationships and how to maintain them, how to communicate even when we disagree. Let's bring a brighter side. That Page of Cups is out there holding out, ready to share. Don't you remember when you were a kid and it was okay to share? And it was okay that you disagreed and you could, play again? Find a lover like that. Find a friend like that. Explore your past, which we did today.
We did. We definitely did. And a lot of things have come full circle. Over this past week, especially, I feel like a lot of the energies are things returning, which is common during a retrograde, things returning, things being revisited, reminiscing. All those RE words are great to do during a retrograde because that's when you are working sort of with the energy of the planet instead of against the energy of the planet. So when it's retrograde, it's time to review, rethink, restructure. So it's all well and good to do all of that, during that
It's the
time.
season of spring. It's
renewal.
Totally it's regrowth. The word is so important, but I find people decluttering, cleaning out old closets, repurposing things, and really getting their soil for fresh growth and new projects.
Renovations. That's another good RE word. It's a good time for planning or executing renovations. So anything where you're going to restore parts of a home or, or even parts of yourself.
Right. Get rid of that garbage internally. And, some of the garbage is not stuff. It's the stuff in our brains that keeps us bogged down. Be free of the negativity, those old opinions that you've had of yourself. I find some really beautiful people lacking the confidence to say, I'm good at this, or I have grown. I can say, I've grown. Can you say you've grown? I bet you can. And I just want you to use that process as just be magical. It's a magical process, getting rid of all the clutter and things that just kind of hold you back. What's your next step? It's time to organize and plan. I have ADD, and what I have to do, I need my lists. I need to go through what's important, prioritize.
And right now, what we're saying is emotionally, that's how you're going to prioritize. Right now, what we're saying is this Piscean push that we're getting is saying, how you feel about these things is what's important. I see a lot of people trying to push back against the Marie Kondo method because they don't really understand that what she's saying is, she's not saying live as a minimalist and get rid of everything. She's saying keep around you what brings you joy. So it is about your emotions. It's about that connection that you have. If that thing being in your space brings you joy, keep it. Keep it. If a huge wall of books brings you untold joy, don't get rid of the books. Keep the books. She never said, you've got to whittle it down to this. It's like there are suggestions, and then there are, listen, if that's your jam, if that's your thing, if that's what brings you great joy, keep it. It's okay to keep it, you know? So speaking of things, when we talk a little bit about the stones today, I was thinking to myself, not necessarily about talking about specific stones, but one of the things that I think is great about the stones is that when we're working with them in a ritual space or doing our personal magics, you can have not just the stones themselves, which a lot of people do. They, hold palm stones or create crystal grids, but there are some absolutely stunningly gorgeous ritual tools that are made with stones.
Look at this.
This is an incredible quartz crystal scepter. This is here at Omen. I am borrowing a couple of Omen's jewels here today to show you, but this is actually available. I find this stunningly gorgeous. One of the things about quartz crystal is there is some lore that it's actually a living thing, but that it only draws a breath once every 100 years. Isn't that cool? So this has a faceted quartz point at the top, which is just full of rainbows, and a gorgeous crystal ball at the end of it. And this is called the clear quartz scepter. And this other one that I grabbed to show you is a fluorite power wand. And this has sort of a more, almost like a palm stone instead of a crystal ball at the bottom. And it has this amazing point at the top. And this is a great healing wand, and in general, neutralizing negative energy and stress. And fluorite in particular is also excellent for focus and learning. So it can make you more productive, balancing energies, balance and coordination. So this gorgeous, look at
Beautiful.
I love that little glittering green stone there too. And there's all kinds of little pieces there's pieces of dichroic glass. I feel the energy.
I can feel the healing energy.
It's radiating.
Ooh,
right? Now,
you feel it tickle.
Not just wands, but how about the daggers too? You don't necessarily just have to have a blade like a knife as your athame. You could have this one happens to be smoky quartz, amazing for clearing negative energy and grounding. This has a bloodstone handle, right? So good. And this has a moss agate in there, so real deep connection with the earth. This gorgeous athame. So I have a really beautiful athame that's all stones that I actually acquired here at Omen. Don't have it with me today, but I do have one. And I just love that energy. It definitely changes it up from the metal, which I have a traditional athame. I do. I have, of course, I'm in a tradition. I, of course, have more than one blade, actually, that I've used over the years. But I love my crystal one. And I think it's got a different energy than just a straight up metal blade, and especially for certain types of healing work. And it's a gentler energy when you're calling in a spirit or an entity with a crystal blade rather than using a steel or other metal type of a blade. I find it to be a gentler energy. Okay. The way that a lot of witches will use a wand for that, because they feel that's gentler than commanding with the athame, I feel like using a crystal athame is a step more in the direction of the athame away from the wand, but more, it's gentler, but it's still Still very commanding, but still kind of like the, you know,
I
the
see.
softness to it. So absolutely. Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that, you know, when you're thinking about your ritual tools and you're acquiring your ritual tools, you can give some thought to the idea of using stones in that fashion, connecting with the crystals that you love in that fashion, because there are definitely a lot of artisans out there using that medium, and they're amazing. So without further ado, the man of the hour.
Here he is.
Tim Soaring Wolf.
Tim.
Please help us make sense of what's going on right now, Tim.
Well, hello, ladies. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be on the show today with y'all. And yes, Mercury retrograde we are currently in, and I definitely have had some things happen that got my attention this past week. So yeah, it's been kind of a rough ride. I believe a lot of the energy of why this one might be a little bit more intense has a lot to do with the Jupiter grand conjunctions. It's more of actually a triple conjunction this year, because we got Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter transiting Capricorn. Saturn and Pluto already met at the beginning of the year, January 12th, but we still got the whole rest of the year left before we'll be seeing a lot more things happen. But yes, you know, going into just talking about this month, you know, we do have Mercury retrograde still until the 10th. I don't know if you all have felt the shift just yesterday of moving from Pisces to Aquarius, but I know when it was in Pisces, I was noticing a lot of people were suffering with insomnia, not being able to, or getting sick because they weren't getting enough sleep. You know, Pisces rules the house of dreams, and so I felt dreams and sleep was very important. Now in Aquarius rules the mind, you know, is a mental sign, but it also rules the nerves, the electrical impulses in our body. So I think now that's going to be important health-wise, paying attention to those things that cause anxiety or stress, electrical, nervous system type of things. But yeah, on the 10th, you know, it's going to be the full moon, which the day goes direct. So a culmination of the lunar cycle on the day that Mercury is shifting directions could definitely cause some of those mercurial things to be happening that specific day. But thankfully, it will go forward on the 10th. And I believe that is the day of your Mars return that we determined.
It is, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, because when you sent me that, that's the day before we leave for New York.
Yes, we're going to New York.
And it was just like, oh my gosh, my Mars return, then I go to New York, you know, Mercury goes direct, like the full moon, like so many things.
Yeah.
All the things.
So there's a lot going out there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, I love astrology for a lot of different reasons. You know, one of my most famous quotes I like from Carl Jung was in a letter he wrote to Sigmund Freud, and he said this quote, "My studies in astrology are fascinating. I've come to the firm conclusion that at the moment of birth, an individual takes on the characteristic state of the universe for that moment in time." And so that is how I explain it to people when I'm who've never had an astrological birth chart done, is that at the moment you came into this world, you basically was like a snapshot was taken of all of the planets in the sky at that moment. And that was the blueprint of the energy around your life and the energies that you've imbued into your personality as well. And so it does, you know, I do believe that we all are created with free will. And, you know, it doesn't, we all respond differently to those energies. But just like there's influences all around us all the time, you know, I do believe there's good spirits and bad spirits and the Holy Spirit and other things that are always trying to influence us. But do we always do good? No. Do we always do bad? No. You know, it's how we respond because we are created with the free will. But like you said, Sandra, a few moments ago before I came on, I was listening. And you said knowing the energies of the universe allows us to learn to work with the universe instead of against it. So even though we have a free will, you know, I do believe there's a flow of energy that is constantly around us, and knowing that energy, we can learn to use it and to our advantage. So.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's I think what hooked me on astrology from a very young age. Even my mom was into astrology, and she had her best friend's sister do my astrological chart, which was at that time done by hand, not by computer. And she had her do that and she gave that to me for my 18th birthday. And yeah, she knew that would be something that would mean a lot to me. And it really kind of set the course for a lot of what I decided to devote my energy to in my life. I have 6 planets in the house of work. And anyone that knows me can tell you, I have an incredible work ethic. I am constantly work. I'm doing my own businesses. I'm helping other people with their businesses. I'm promoting somebody's business, or I'm helping someone in some work capacity. Psychic work, energy work, work. Rihanna's gonna come in here and work. I'm just like, that's me. Like that is so me. And I married somebody who's just like that. So it's like, yeah, it's always with, basically it's like I invented the side hustle, so it's incredible to me that, looking at that at a young age, I was like, I am here to get some shit done, and that's been my life. I can't even ever imagine myself being retired. I don't even know what that would be, because I'm like, I always have projects. I always have, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'm always going to have something going on. I have so many irons. This is like, I have so many of these in the fire at any given time. I have a lot of wands, lined up in my life. So it's like, yeah, I am always do. That's just a piece of me. So, I don't know how many people know their chart beyond just their zodiac sign, which is where their sun was when they were born. Also, I'm not considered like a typical Libra because I don't have that kind of indecisiveness. And I think it's probably because of my Taurus rising, helps me be a lot more direct. It helps me kind of get to the earthy part faster. And so I feel like knowing beyond just your sun sign can help you make sense of yourself in a greater capacity. Oh yes, absolutely. When you only take one piece of anything, it can be a fallacy. So if you are only looking in astrology at the sun sign, your planet, well, yeah, it's going to be maybe 50% right, sometimes 50% not right. You do have to take in the whole puzzle, everything included. And one thing I always say about astrology that I really love is that you get to know yourself, and in getting to know yourself, you know your strengths, your weaknesses, you learn to love yourself more, and that is really how you can learn to love yourself, by knowing yourself, and by doing so, you're going to attract love from others automatically. So I love when I'm talking to people about the chart, and they're just nodding their head, like, yes, that's right, blah, 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 and they can identify where the energy is coming from as well. When we talk about transits, like the transits we're going through this year with this intense energy going on, when it's good to know that, for example, we're now Mercury's in retrograde, so there's some confusion, there's some miscommunication, so people don't internalize that energy and take it all upon themselves that it's something bad that they did or something wrong they did. It is an energy that is in the air right now that you have to, it's an external energy, it's not internal, so it kind of helps to look at things that way when you can determine when it's an external thing versus something that internal that you're doing yourself, Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I like to look at even my own, looking at my own sign. It's my faults when they're clearly written out in front of you. You're literally able to look at them. I try my best not to be so sensitive, and every day you get up and you look at yourself and you're like, these are the things I got to work on. That's why I think astrology is important. What do you say to people? Like, I get a lot of people like, oh, astrology is BS. It's not a science. But what do you say? How do you combat the naysayer?
Well, So, you know, if you actually look at history, at one point astronomy and astrology were inextricably linked together. They were, you know, all of the wise seers and druids and priests back in the ancient days, you know, looked to the stars, and you know, it was the most popular between like 332 BC and 31 BC, and really with the rise of Christianity, astrology declined. It is my belief that, you know, it was more of a power thing, a political thing possibly, where they realized the wisdom and power associated with these astrologers that had gone for thousands of years, and they had to do something to undermine it. So what better way to do that than the face of the devil, you know?
Right, yeah.
So, you know, trying to turn people away from it, but it is still very much alive. You know, astrology technically is considered a pseudoscience because it's not based on facts, versus like astronomy is an actual science that is based on facts. But really, without astrology, to me, astronomy means nothing. Who cares if the planet Mars is at 18 degrees in Taurus if it doesn't affect me in any way, shape, or form, you know? But the fact that my Mars is actually in Taurus, and my Mars being conjunct in Taurus at 18 degrees would mean that that's the day of my Mars return. I need to pay attention to that day, right? So...
I mean, I get a lot of people who say, well, you know, who cares if it's Mercury retrograde? Like, you know, if something's messing up in your life, it's your own fault, not a planet's fault. And it's like, yeah, nobody's looking to like cast blame at that level. Yeah, we might joke around like, oh, Mercury, oh, you know, but we're not being serious about it. But what we're saying is, I mean, if it's like, ask anybody that works as a first responder if there's any truth at all to the idea that the full moon causes lunacy or problems. You know what I mean? It's like, ask anybody that works in an ER, ask anybody that works at a police station. You know, there is something to that energetic pull that is a literal pull on our planet, which governs the tides and everything else, and the emotions. We are what percent water in our bodies? Absolutely. So of course it's that we can feel that. Anybody that's ever broken a bone can tell you when it's about to rain for that same reason. The barometric pressure is pulling on a part of the body. And so the idea that we're existing on this planet, you know, in a complete bubble away from anything else just because we have a nice atmosphere here, it's not true. We are in some relation to these other planets that are a part of our solar system. And so there is an energy there. And I think anything, science and magic are really two sides of the same coin. Magic is the science we haven't figured out yet. That's pretty much it. Because how you want to classify something as if it's magic or if it's science is basically, if we've quantified it, then we define it as a science. If we haven't, then we call it magic, or we call it woo-woo, or we call it quote unquote pseudoscience, whatever that means. It's like, yeah, but it's just probably something we haven't really wrapped our brains around yet. There's probably something to it. There's a definition we don't have. There's an answer we don't really know. So it's in that gray area. And let's face it, most of life is in that gray area, you know. There's so much of what goes on here that we're only able to discern one level of it, you know, and to think that, you know, we've got it all mapped out and figured out already is foolish, especially when you think of how many things we can't figure out the answer to. We can't figure out the cure to yet. We just don't have it yet, and the timeline is going, you know, and it's like we just don't know yet.
In heaven and earth.
Yeah, right. So, you know, one thing that I'm going to bring up, and it's been brought up, you know, it's been brought up quite a bit lately, of course, is the coronavirus. Now, is there anything going on astrologically that should have clued us? Is there something going on with Saturn? Is there something going on? Like, what's going on that says this is going to be a year of a major, major global health crisis? What's in the planets that could have led us to that conclusion? And is there anything going on that could give us kind of any hope that this is going to pass without becoming, you know, the total breakdown that some people are worried that it's going to be?
So my belief on it is that every grand conjunction year, which is approximately every 20 years, because it is kind of like a new cycle of a major of things coming to fruition, that it's very important that we are watching what we think and are manifesting our thoughts this year, because if you think about it, Jupiter is all about growth, but it's all about faith as well, and taking risks and opening doors and putting faith, whereas Saturn is all about not taking risks, putting things into the physical world, making sure that you really build a solid foundation before you move on to that next level. So combining the two, what we believe in this year is going to manifest. What we really focus our energies on, the saying goes, what you focus on expands, I think is really going to happen. And but I do believe that it is going to, a lot of it is fear-based. I believe that people are sensing the energies of change and transformation in the air, and change makes people uncomfortable. There's a change going on in the government and with the old structures. The Capricorn rules structures that we've depended on for many, many years. And all of these energy when going through Capricorn is destroying all of our beliefs on a lot of things. The government, police departments, the authorities that are put above us. So all of this is happening. Now, of course, there are conspiracies floating around about how it was created, why it was created, where it's all, might have been even government-based. But I do believe it, like I said, a lot of it is based on fear. I believe we will get through it all. We are completing a 200-year cycle, and this new in Earth signs, 200 years of grand conjunctions in Earth signs. This year will be the start of a new cycle where it is the grand conjunction in an air sign, Aquarius. So I'm not sure if that might have been a clue to us that, something major in the air might be happening. I mean, we just had that tornado in Nashville.
Right.
Yeah.
But, so this thing is airborne.
It is.
And
airborne.
it's a respiratory focused problem.
Yes,
so
exactly.
We're literally seeing a health crisis in the air, you know what I mean? And that has to do with our air. Yeah. One of the biggest symptoms of this is shortness of breath, shortness of air, a lack of air. So,
it's awful. And well, it even breeds into the politics. People are unable to communicate. Air. They're not talking to one another. We're not using our intellect. It's totally, it's a weird time.
Yeah.
Tim, I had heard that there's a lot of supermoons this year. Does that affect anything, and is that true?
Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. A lot of what this year?
Supermoons.
Oh, supermoons, yes.
I had heard that there were 3 or...
Yeah, this next supermoon, this next full moon is supposed to be a supermoon, and there's different there's different definitions. I mean, some people say it's supermoon when it's not, but I believe it has to do with like the distance of how close it is to the Earth or how we can see it. I do believe, of course, when the moon is a little closer versus farther, it does affect us a little bit differently. But I feel like the more about what sign it's in, what it's transiting currently, is where it's going to have a little more of an influence. Right now, the moon is in Cancer, so it's at home, and it's the sign of Cancer, the sign that it rules.
No wonder you ended up with that moonstone. I wonder. She bought this pendant today.
I bought a pendant today, and it has a beautiful moonstone in the center.
Yeah.
And I'm just so, I feel that the stone
is
Cancerian,
I'm a Cancerian. Cancer ruled by the moon. Moonstone is like one of the number one stones for, for Cancerians. So it's like, of course you needed that today.
So these supermoons, do you feel that they'll affect psychic ability? People will be able to hear more from the spirit world?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And also, the phases of the moon as well. I mean, I believe the full moon is, we're talking a little bit about how full moons, scientists haven't actually determined why crazy things happen around the full moon, but they know crazy things do happen. And I believe that is part of the personality of the mysteriousness of the moon. The moon will never, ever give us those solid, factual, things, because that's the personality of the moon. The moon, there's only one side of the moon that we see. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the moon doesn't rotate like the Earth. The gravity of the Earth is so strong that it only vibrates 8 degrees, and then it kind of like moves back and forth, but it doesn't actually completely go around in a circle. So we, from the Earth, only ever see one side of the moon. There's that dark side of the moon, the mysteriousness we'll never will understand. But I do believe at the peak of the full moon, that is when emotions are at their strongest, magic is at its strongest, and therefore that's why we are able to, do the rituals with a full emotional range, because our emotions are at its most powerful. I ironically was born at the peak of the full moon, exactly to the minute. And so I have a strong connection to the moon. I'm in my chart, I'm a moon-dominant person, and even though I'm a Gemini, I have 2 planets in Cancer. So again, also that lunar connection as well. But yes, the moon is the 3 big signs, of course, anyone should learn if you're a newbie at astrology, is your sun sign, your moon sign, and then your ascendant. The ascendant, you have to know the time of day, because that changes every 2 to 3 hours. But if you can know those 3 main signs, the sun is your logic, your masculine side, your moon is your emotional side, your feminine, your spirituality, and then your ascendant is how you interact with the world and how the world views you. So I know I went off on a little of a tangent there, answering your question.
No,
it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
I myself have no water in my chart, which is why I'm always drawn to, water signs.
And I have no air in my chart.
Oh, wow. Well, that's good for balance.
And I'm drawn to air signs. What do you say to people who, like, okay, I'm a Cancer, and I'm with my boyfriend is an air sign. He's a Gemini. And everyone's like, oh, that's not going to work. Just like they said about my mother, who's a Pisces, and my father, who's an Aries, and they've been married for 50 years.
Oh. Well,
what happens? What happens when it, I always say that there's deeper.
So in astrology, your next door neighbor sign is considered to be semi-sextile, which is an aspect that is harmonious. It's a good sign. So even though you would think that like a Gemini Cancer, that's air water, you wouldn't get along, you are neighbors. So technically you do get along with your neighbor signs as well as the same element. And then, of course, your complementary elements. So water and earth are complementary of each other, and then air and fire are complementary of each other. But I always like to go a little deeper as well with people, because, we were talking a little bit earlier about how, some people only know the negatives of signs. And, for example, I'm a Gemini. What's the first thing that people think of when they think of Gemini is two-faced, So that's something I've had to combat, to make sure that I'm not like that. I've had to overcome that stereotype and make sure that I am focusing on the positive qualities of Gemini. Gemini is the messenger of the world, ruled by Mercury, so I need to pay attention to my communication. My words have power. But in my moon is in Sagittarius, so I have a very fiery temperament. But then when you look at my Venus and Mars, you would think that with the air-fire combination, I would be very flighty and spontaneous and all over the place. But in relationships, my Venus and Mars are in Taurus. So in relationships, I'm like a Taurus. I do the long. I'm in for the long haul. I've never really had like a short-term relationship. And of course, sorry, what?
No, I love Taurus.
Oh, she's just chiming in.
Oh, yeah. It's important to look at like all the aspects of your chart. Like you talked about your parents, Pisces and Aries. That was their sun sign, but maybe their moon signs were very compatible, that caused them to be on an emotional level in sync with each other, which to me in a relationship, looking at the moon signs is sometimes more important than the sun sign, because your sun sign is your ego, the moon sign is your emotion, and that's what's important in a relationship, is that emotional connection as well. So
Definitely.
you kind of have to look at the whole
sense.
picture. Yeah.
My mom and I are opposite each other. So I'm a Libra sun with a Sag moon, and my mother is a Sag sun with a Libra moon. So we're
nice.
We're like sort of mirror images of each other, kind of interestingly. So I think that sort of explains why we were able to really kind of, I don't know, it's like me and my mom against the world, it was like, it's just the two of us, so it was just like, I don't know, I feel like we were able to come to an understanding because it's like we're two sides to that same coin.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of understanding between you two that it may even be on borderline telepathic. You just
right.
Yeah.
It started out being kind of a struggle when I was much younger, and then as I grew, it became the complete opposite. It was like when I was really little, I was kind of at odds with my mom, and then it just turned, it just turned the complete and utter opposite, and she became like my whole world. So it's just one of those things.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and if you want to go even deeper into astrology, I mean, we have aspects. And so this is like a whole nother level. Aspects are the relationship between two planets or more. So like we have this grand conjunction. A conjunction is an aspect, the planets are connecting. And so like me and my son's a Virgo. Virgo and Gemini, technically in astrology, make a square, so there's a challenging influence between the two. But we actually have a lot of similar aspects in each other's charts. Like he was born very close to the full moon. He has his moon conjunct Neptune. I have my moon conjunct Neptune. So it's interesting that we have a lot of similar aspects to the point of when he was little, he used to dream about me, things happening in my life. He didn't know what he was dreaming about, but he would tell me his dreams, and there was things that were actually happening in my life. Like we were connected on that level, like on a subconscious dream level. And I think it was because of our Neptune-Moon conjunction. Also, we both have the sun in the 12th house, which the 12th house is the house of dreams and Pisces, and so we both have a lot of similar placements. So there's so much to astrology. Like really, I could talk all day long about this. And even though I've been studying it for about 10 years, I'm still learning lots of things all the time. But I did teach a class for a while, and that was a lot of fun. I do have a class that is prepared to teach, but I haven't done it in a while. Maybe if I got some interested students, it might teach a live class again for people that want to learn Astrology 101. But,
we would love to have you come and teach it at Omen in Salem, and after April, the classes here will be online as well as in person, so anyone anywhere in the world could take that class. So that's going to be exciting because we're getting into online classes where we're going to be streaming. So you could be here with a few people here in the room with you, here in the spirit parlor of Omen, and then people anywhere in the world could be attending the class.
I would love to take your class.
Oh, that would be awesome.
I would totally take it.
I
would totally take that class.
Just having you on the show, I've learned so much about astrology, what it is, what it isn't, how to approach the planets. You're very informative, Tim. I always love talking to you.
Yeah, we love having you on.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
That would be dynamite to have a class here. I want to talk a little bit about the houses. Please. Can you help people understand what the houses are and what each of the 12 houses means? So this is the reason why some people will say the ascendant is one of the most important signs because, and it's unfortunate that some people don't know the time of day they were born or it wasn't printed on their birth certificate. But if you are able to calculate that, that is your ascendant. That is the beginning of your first house. And from there, you can determine all of the rest of the houses. Now, each house represents a different area of your life. So you can determine, what planets are affecting what areas of your life. And this is how you can do predictions on astrology and find out what will be the good time for
opportunities coming your way, maybe a good time to focus on maybe retiring a little bit back and taking a step back in reflection and then going forward again. So it's really amazing to know that, the ascendant, and you can make all these transit predictions. But the house system, there's the Pulsita system that is used very commonly with when you know the time of day. But then there's also the whole house system that you will learn if you don't know the time of day, and that's kind of just based on your sun sign. And it goes through, like, for example, I'm a Gemini, so my second house is in Cancer, so my second house is the house of money and finances, so I handle my money and finances the way a Cancer would, basically. And then the third house is the house of the mind and communication. And so that would be like the whole house system. But yeah, each house represents a different part of your life, and then of course each house is also associated with a planet and also with a sign. So, for example, Libra is the house of relationships. That's the 7th house, and Libra is ruled by Venus. So whatever planets you may have in the 7th house may affect your relationships. This is also why Libras are relationships are very important to Libras. And that's why they're, usually diplomatic, and they don't necessarily try to ruffle people's feathers. They like the peace and harmony. And the Cancer, for example, rules the 4th house, which is the house of home and family. And so Cancers, love their immediate environment. They love their home life. They love their families. Those are the things that are very important to them. And then the 10th house is the house of the career, the Capricorn. And so, like, if you look at what's happening in the 10th house, I've actually been looking forward to a transit that's coming up where Neptune is going to be transiting my 10th house. This is exciting for me because Neptune is all about spirituality, about dreams, and my favorite job is doing this stuff, doing readings for people, doing classes. And so I'm really excited to see how Neptune transiting my 10th house is going to change what I do from a spiritual work, I'm really excited
absolutely.
about that. So you can make predictions.
That's part of how, when you get an astrological reading done, that's what you can do. You can forecast over the next, 6 to 12 months, et cetera, what those transits are and what's likely to occur and what types of things that person's going to be focused on or should be focused on. That's kind of how you would do that sort of predictive work for them, right?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, and I would tell people, if you've never had a chart done, you always start with your birth chart because it's really important to understand your own personal planet, and your chart. I think is really super important. But then after that, there's the compatibility reports. You can look at the relationship between two charts, the energy compatibility between two people. You can, do forecasts for the future. Then there's like return charts, like your Jupiter return chart, your Saturn return chart, your Mars return, which, Sandra, for you, that was really fun to do because I had never actually done one before. And so it was really interesting to look at all those things that I did for you. And the only thing I think I would do...
Thank you very much. It's very good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I offered to do it because I wanted to kind of prepare a template for doing that for the future, and I would only include maybe more about your Mars sign in Capricorn, but yeah, then of course you got your aspects, your personal aspects in your own chart, aspects transit wise. There's just so much. There's a lot, but yeah, it's great to have that knowledge and understand the energy around you and learn to use it to better your life, better yourself, your relationship.
So I want to know if we can take the birth of our nation, which could be spiritually pinpointed to the 4th of July, 1776, and use that to take a look at what's happening right now and forecast out over the course of the next, year or so, how somebody with that birth date would be, what is the, what is going to be aspected for the country itself as a whole.
Oh yeah, and astrologers definitely. There's a lot of astrologers out there that do that. And there is a chart for the birth of our nation, which is considered July 4th, 1776. So looking at the birth of our nation, on that day the sun was in Cancer, the moon was in Aquarius. So this is the personality of the United States. Cancer is all about home, protecting their home, but Aquarius is the revolutionary, going against the flow. And the Revolutionary War broke free from Britain. And so, you could look at the chart of the nation and also make those same types of predictions. And then, we can also look at the history. I love looking at patterns. I strongly believe there's no coincidences, only the illusion of one. But there's patterns all around us. Back in 2009, when Mercury went retrograde, I was made aware of a pattern that Mercury was hitting every single degree exactly as the same year of 1930. So if you think back to 1930 and 2009, that was the year of the Great Depression. That was the year the economy collapsed. And if you look at the transit of Mercury in 2009, it is exactly the same to the degree as 1930, with retrogrades and all. So I did a thing, while the economy was crashing and all of the stocks were going down, I looked at the year 1930, and in November there was a small spike upwards of the stock going up for a couple of weeks, then it went back down. So in November, when everybody was losing money, I took all of my retirement out of stable fund, put it into the stock market for 1 month, and then took it back out, and it followed that same exact spike the stock market did, and I doubled my retirement. I made back a lot of money I had lost. So
nice job. That's fantastic.
Yes, there's a
nothing ventured, nothing gained, right?
Exactly. Wow. We talk about the pattern of the Grand Conjunction, that every 20 years, whoever's been president, there's been an assassination attempt on their life where they either died in office, either one or the other, or one of, they were assassinated. And this goes back all the way to Abraham Lincoln back in 1860, or whenever he died in office. It was 5 years later, but he died in office. He was assassinated. So the big prediction is that whoever will be elected president at the end of this year may have an assassination attempt on their life. George W. Bush, a lot of people don't know, but someone threw a live grenade at him when he was president 20 years ago. Didn't explode though. And then of course 20 years before that it was Reagan. Reagan got shot, but he lived. You can go back every approximately 20 years. It's really interesting.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of information on that particular thing on the internet. If you Google it, you can definitely find people tracing it back, and you can take a look at all the incidences, and it's
fascinating.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It really is. So I have a question for Lou. Lou, do you know your? Yeah, I know you must know your sun sign. Do you know your moon or your ascendant?
I do not. I'm just right? A basic guy. I know I'm a Leo. That's it.
And what about your girlfriend? Do you know her sign?
She's a Scorpio.
So Tim, what do you think of the Leo-Scorpio combination?
All right. So Leo Scorpio, I would say intensity, passion, lots of passion. There's fire and water. So again, when we're looking at a relationship, we want to look at the moon signs. Is there an emotional connection? And then the Venus and Mars, because Venus is how we love emotionally, but Mars is how we love physically. So there's got to be some chemistry there. If there's no chemistry, there's no relationship, right? Now, typically, Leo and Scorpio are at odds with each other. They're both fixed signs. They're both stubborn. They're both fixed in their ways to a certain degree. And they're both very different elements. So they do want to accomplish the same thing, but they want to do it very differently. But that intensity, that chemical reaction between two signs that are sometimes not considered to be compatible can actually create the excitement that energizes a relationship to be exciting and vibrant and fun, So it only becomes negative if there's too many squares in a street, because then those challenges become annoying and heavy, and it can cause, a breakup. I've also done a sympatry report for a couple one time. So just so you all know, when you do a sympatry report, on average, for me, I've seen a very typical good relationship has between 20 to 30 aspects. That means there's a good level of energy exchange between, a good chemical reaction between the two, between your planet and my planet. I did a couple one time, and they literally only had about 10 aspects in their chart. So there wasn't a lot of chemical reactions between that person's planet and the other person. And I told the person, I said, I believe this is a relationship of comfort. This is a relationship of complacency. There's not a lot of energetic things going on, but they're just comfortable, and they don't really want to make any changes. And sure enough, the person I was talking to about this, that knew the couple, said, "Yep, you're exactly right. They're not. I could tell they're not happy, but they won't admit it because they're comfortable with each other." So yeah. So back to your original question of Leo and Scorpio. You got fire, you got water. Both are very passionate signs, so I definitely see a lot of passion there. But could be a whole slew of other things between the Venus, Mars, and Moon signs, and even Mercury. Because Mercury are signs of how we communicate.
We've got our share of squares, that's for certain.
Yeah.
Now, are those both mutable? Is Scorpio and Leo both mutable?
No, Scorpio is fixed and Leo is fixed.
Okay. Oh, so they're both fixed. Okay, interesting.
So when you're the same element, that's harmonious, but when you're the same quality or modality, that is a square. That's not good. And there's also the opposite sign. So, like the mutable signs, for me, Gemini, technically Pisces and Virgo are supposed to square Gemini, so there's a little discomfort there, a little bit of disharmony. But the trine signs, when you stick with your same element, usually there's some harmony, a little bit more flow, easily flow. Like if you don't, we need to have some of those challenges sometimes to help us grow and evolve. So squares cannot always be bad. Sometimes squares are help us to become who we are meant to be.
So I just wanted to say that when we were all involved in starting the Festival of the Dead, which would have been Christian, Sean, Poirier, Leanne, and myself, when we were all basically coming together and forming Festival of the Dead, we represented the cardinal sign of each of the elements.
Oh,
cardinal
wow,
earth,
that's awesome.
Cardinal air, cardinal fire, and cardinal water. So I'm a Libra, she's a Cancer, Christian's a Capricorn, Sean was an Aries. So it was literally the four elements, and it was all the cardinal, like the catalysts, the ones that like it explodes and, start like the shot heard around the world. And so I'm not surprised that we created something it's still existing to this day and still going on, because it was like the combination of that four, the cardinals of the four elements were just like bam.
It really was bam.
Two men, two women, the four elements. It was like, it was just I don't know, everything aligned.
I also,
everything
with
aligned.
saying that, the cardinal signs, I had heard that people who are cardinal signs are old souls. Did you ever hear that?
Yeah, well, I think that's awesome about the achievements you make, because cardinals are the executive signs, and usually you've got so many cardinal signs. There's a lot of energy to do stuff, but so much scattered energy, nothing gets done.
There you go.
But you guys were able to channel that energy to be able to create something that is long-lasting. And then, of course, like the same thing with the fixed signs. Fixed signs, too much fixed energy can create a stagnant blockage, not moving anywhere. And then mutable signs, it's all flexibility. If you're too flexible, being mutable, then you don't get anything done either, because everybody just wants to conform to everybody else. So it's a good mix to have all of them. But yes, cardinal signs are the doers, the executives. They're the ones go out and make it happen. They all do it differently, though. For example, Libra is all about teamwork and doing it through relationships, versus Aries is all about doing it by themselves and leading the pack. Cancer is all about, making sure everybody is happy along the journey from an emotional perspective, versus Capricorn is making sure that you guys reach your goals no matter what, ambitious. So it's interesting how there's so many different personalities, but there's so many similarities as well that we can just look from each other. From so many, I just love astrology.
So, Tim, I am so sorry that we've come to the end of our show, because literally we could go on, we could go on for hours. But thank you so much for this extended foray into astrology. If people want to find you, it's Tim Soaring Wolf on Facebook, and you've also got your own website.
Yes, I'm working on some things on my website. It will be at timsoaringwolf.com, but in the meantime, I'm easily found on Facebook. Hopefully by the end of Mercury retrograde, I'll have that website up.
Okay. And we'll all be back here on the first Thursday of next month. So
excellent.
Be good to each other, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.